is 6 o'clock.
All right,
Start.
okay. Ready for me? Good
We
evening.
are
All
ready
right.
for you, Chief Daniels.
Good evening, everyone. I must admit, this is probably a little different for everybody in this room, including myself. For the past 18 years, this message was being delivered by Chief Haida. So I'm very excited and I appreciate the opportunity to come and meet with you tonight, talk about the fire department's budget and emergency management budget. This is a little bit of background. Through the hard work and dedication of our 18 full-time career officers to administrative staff and currently at 49 volunteer staff, the Mount Lebanon Fire Department continues to provide superior service in accordance with industry standards and best management practices validated by the Commission on Fire Accreditation International and Insurance Services Office. As you are all aware, we are an accredited department. We're one of 312 currently accredited departments in the US and Canada, and only out of 121 agencies to be both accredited and hold the Insurance Services Office Class 1. Put that in perspective, United States Fire Administration estimates there are 26,000 fire departments in the United States. So that's quite an accomplishment. We're very proud of. Well, many fire service agencies focus strictly on response and staffing of those responses. There is a realization that response is only one component of the total community fire planning process. Mount Lebanon Fire Department prides itself in being a holistic community risk reduction agency. Our success in this approach is evidenced by our Mount Lebanon's historically low fire loss, ISO rating, and low number of civilian casualties throughout the municipality. For the 2023-2024 school year, our fire life safety education program delivered over 400 educational lessons to the students of Mount Lebanon, both public and private schools. For the past 5 years, the program has grown to include preschools, homeschool students, 8th grade kitchen safety, Stop the Bleed programs, and the one program we're very proud of, which is pretty unique in the industry, is our special needs program that we deliver to the communities. Our fire inspection division is on pace to complete over 1,600 inspections, re-inspections, and other fire code enforcement activities in commercial properties and apartment buildings. And these activities help ensure not only the safety of the individuals that occupy those buildings, but protects the investment of the building owners and protects the tax base of the municipal tax base. Our community outreach efforts include installing smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, performing safety checks on residential fireplaces, delivery of community education programs to senior citizens and other community groups, participation in community events such as 4th of July and others, the delivery of our popular Citizens Fire Academy, and maintains our social media presence, providing information on fire safe behaviors and hazards in the community. All these are designed to reduce the risk of our residents. The unsung heroes of our department are our volunteers. That staff not only augments our career staffing with night and weekend shifts, but also provide additional personnel at incidents and allows us to deliver programs that the current staffing levels would be unable to deliver at the level and quality that we were able to today. Annually, our volunteers will put in over 10,000 hours of training, incident response, performing inspections, attending community events, delivering outreach programs, and staffing the station through our standby and duty shift program. While a large portion of the country has continued to struggle with volunteerism and to maintain their volunteer ranks, we have been very fortunate that we have not only maintained our ranks, but we have expanded them. With the 6 new volunteers that will be coming on in 2025, part of our most recent class of the CFA, will bring us to 49 members. By charter, we're allowed 50. So we are right at the cusp of maxing out our entire volunteer ranks. To continue our efforts towards a fire safe community, our proposed 2025 budget includes a 5.7% increase over 2024. This increase is related to contractual personnel increases, of increase from the water company for our hydrant rental of $27,300, a $13,000 increase in municipal funding for our volunteer organization, and replacement and upfit of the fire chief's vehicle for $68,000. With that, I'll entertain any questions.
Unusually quiet.
Wow, you're all doing great work. We appreciate it. It's,
thank you.
you know, you had perfection.
I review the annual reports that get sent over and I review everything. It took me 6 years, but this is the first year I don't have a question. I call Chief Haida with questions every year after I read that, and you too, cover to cover, and I always called you with questions. This is the first year I didn't have them.
Great. Jeffrey, no. Steve, no. Andrew?
You guys know, I
Worries
really.
about volunteers, they're just sitting around the station and.
One that you might have to get rid of.
Ernie doesn't.
I don't want to answer, it may affect funding.
Steve, he's one of our cheapest employees.
What you pay for?
I have one question about the volunteer. So the charter says we have 50, is that like because of our size or our space of the building, or what, why is that limited to?
So, a couple reasons. When I first started volunteering, the number was 40 and we were in this building, and that was largely
Yeah.
driven just by physical
Space,
space.
sure.
When we moved to the new building, with D'Arcangelo as the chief, there was discussions with the volunteers and the chief to expand it to 50, again, because we had new space at the new building. Couple limitations. One is a space issue. There's a few things we could do. We've talked about it in case we started bumping up against that number. Quite frankly, the other issue is a budgetary constraint, with the cost of turnout gear and equipment, it could get kind of expensive. The other side of it is quite simply a managerial component to it, because the more and more we get, the more and more span of control starts to expand. Yeah, it gets to become challenging for us.
That makes sense. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Okay.
Doing great.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Great.
What's next?
Outreach. Mary's here.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Steve.
Find her, it's page.
The man, the myth, the legend.
36.
Yes, that's fine. 36. So we'll move into any other community organization. We'll just do a switch here. Any community organizations, or she's waiting for Steve McLean.
Oh, sure.
No problem.
Find her.
Yeah, budget binder 137.
Fine.
So historically, in past years, 3 years ago and later, we used to bring in each community organization. We've since stopped doing that.
Right.
If there's any questions here, at funding levels that are, for the partnership and historical society that are presented in the manager's recommended budget, this is the time to discuss.
The only question I had is I think Eric had mentioned this before, where we asked him about the intern thing maybe didn't go so well or didn't go as planned, and that wasn't something you wanted to do again, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question is, did we not give them some money for a facade program? I'm talking about the partnership.
Yes.
Is that over and above the 20,000?
Yes, in a different bucket.
Okay,
That's a different bucket.
all right. How much was that? 25 or something like that?
Thereabouts, that'll be fully carried over into 2025.
Okay,
That was, I believe they're just finishing up that policy.
yeah.
So-
Yeah, no, that's
That was
fine.
part of the carryover funds under, a civic activity. We're
Yeah.
including that in this budget.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with the $30,000 request, to be honest, because I think these people work their tails off and the stuff they do for us is tremendous.
Talk about partnership.
Mhm.
Oh.
I'm talking about the partnership. I hadn't gone to the historical, but I mean, I don't know what everybody else's feeling is.
The events are important. They matter. And not to say that that's all they do, but I do think the events are important, and I'm pleased that we're gonna get some design recommendations coming from there here shortly.
One of the reasons we kept group funding down in the past is because we got requests from a lot of different groups, and we were always afraid of like, hey, if we give a lot of the groups, then the boards will ask for money, and we had always taken the kind of position that, you know, they need to advise the commission, they shouldn't be going out holding tons of meetings and events. Obviously, the partnership is a little bit different, but
Yeah, I think for me, one of the key drivers is, the kind of the multiplication factor of the dollar spent.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the partnership is a multiplier. That I think they have grown and changed in the 4 years I've been on the board. They have their executive director now, Kate, is doing a fantastic job, right? And it's starting to build a momentum on its own, as opposed to it being just, a board that engages with the municipality. They are standing up on their own, which I think is important long term. And I push them down this path. toward being more self-sustaining and more of a, voice of the business district and engaging businesses more proactively. As opposed to, just relying on Eric.
Municipal events, right?
Right, and I think that will continue. I'm hopeful that they will continue to push us, with their interest and to create a collective voice that is a loud voice to the municipality. While still, obviously working with us to, move things forward. I think any dollars we give them are well spent.
Why don't we put it on the, to discuss and look at it with the list of other stuff we said moves forward?
Yeah, I got a quick question for Andrew. This could sound like it's going through the room.
Skunk in the room.
You know, is that,
No.
you mentioned about getting to stand on their own, which is great.
Yep.
We give the bigger, at some point, they kind of get used to that as opposed to like, find go, that's,
Yeah.
we're more, kind of what's your long-term.
Well, no, and I agree, right? And I think for me, this isn't necessarily like, we spend them out and they're gone for good. But they are a mechanism to tap resources that we can't tap as a
Right.
municipality, right? As a 501c3, they have different channels that they can engage on. That doesn't mean their floor, doesn't need to be supported. It means that they have other avenues that we
Right.
can't engage on.
They also have
that-
other avenues they can get funding from.
Right, that's true,
This is only a
right?
percentage of their
Yeah.
budget.
And so how do we recognize that, a dollar spent here is brings in more dollars? For the community in a lot of different ways. It's not just events, it's it's a channel to bring in money.
Right.
So again, I mean, long-term, will they always need 30? Maybe not. And will they survive without it? Yes. But I think they are a good investment, for the business
I
district.
think so too. And my experience dealing with the downtown, these groups all across the city of Pittsburgh, when the city started to take away the money and you have to be on your own, it became, all they did was try to fundraise just to be able to keep the doors open. This is something that I think they bring in.
One thing I did not ask for this year, but I typically do, I don't know whether they
Yeah.
supplied it, Terry, is their financial statements.
Oh,
Because I know a number of years ago, they were holding in excess of $100,000. So I always try to balance what
Sure.
I'm recommending versus
Yeah,
what
yeah,
they
yeah.
have capacity wise.
Yeah.
Right.
So and they're a great organization. They do a lot of great
Yeah.
things for the municipality. I don't have any
You get-
issues
yeah,
there.
but We should get the balance sheet too.
Yes, there is a-
I was gonna give my 2 cents worth to the Historical Society.
Yeah.
That, and they're very, very appreciative of the $7,500 that they've received. Because of the situation they're in, that almost all goes right back to municipality rent for the building. So it's kind of like going, thank you, and we turn around and pay it back, and, there's like about
Right.
$88,000 left on the note, so that's where at least ask commission to consider upping it to $10,000 rather than $7,500 the manager recommended, so we always put that on the list for later discussion, but that's the thought process anyway.
And they're doing some good tech stuff too. I saw they had a nice auction this year.
Yeah, they do a nice job with that.
Mhm.
Todd DiPastino's daughter does a lot of our tech work.
Yeah.
His elder daughter does that. And just, I mean, you see that happening. When Jim Wojcik was going, yeah, I think we can raise $220,000. That will cover like all of our to-do list left. And literally, when he's through his fundraising letter saying, I keep crossing out the things we get done. I'm like, yay,
Yeah.
progress.
Mhm.
So,
It's good.
but keep it going.
All right, that goes on the list too?
Yeah.
Everybody's okay?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Good. That's that.
Mary, Steve, you're up.
Okay. Here, is it good?
Yeah.
Ooh, we got big chairs. Road chair.
Welcome back to the arena. Oh, thanks.
Exactly.
See your face off at the meeting. I do a double take when I say Steve, I'm like, oh wait, that's the other.
Steve's almost at the point where he's been to more meetings often. It's getting close.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you.
It's great to be here tonight. On behalf of our board of directors, our team of counselors, our office staff and clients, thank you for the privilege to present this evening. I am joined by a familiar face this evening, Steve McLean, who is the treasurer of the board of directors of Outreach. Tonight will be my final budget presentation on behalf of Outreach Teen and Family Services, beginning first in 2014. Thinking about what is ahead has led me to review prior year's presentations and budget narratives, along with historical facts that have made our presentations impactful and timely. In those 10 years, we've had 3 presidents and a global pandemic. We've had thousands of school shootings incidents with many deaths. Climate change and natural disasters are a constant in the 24-hour news cycle. The use of social media channels such as Snapchat and Instagram took off exponentially. 1 billion smartphones were sold worldwide starting in 2014 and currently stand at 7.2 billion worldwide. These are the issues our children and parents are facing every single day. With the addition of AI, we can start to understand the increase in stress, depression, anxiety in our kiddos and in us. So quite a monumental change from the issues of the day back in 1974 when we first started working with teens. Mental Health America's The State of Mental Health in America, published in 2024, and the CDC's Youth Risk Behavior Survey Data Summary and Trends Report from 2013 to 2023 provide a couple of the following statistics. 20% of high school students reported experiencing serious thoughts of suicide, 16% made a plan, and 9% attempted. 1 in 5 youth ages 12 to 17 reported suffering from at least one major depressive episode in the past year. 50% of them did not receive treatment. I've shared handouts from both of those studies. Pages include key findings for mental health and suicidal thoughts and behaviors, along with data sheets for persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness, poor mental health, and seriously considered attempting suicide. As you read through these statistics, it becomes very clear that the affordability of Outreach's mental health counseling services and program offerings is still pertinent, impactful, and very necessary. Thank you to our Mount Lebanon community and its leaders who have been both visionary and practical in their support and advocacy for this agency, ensuring that the community has mental health counseling and educational resources for our kids and families. Our program manager, Maggie Zangara, continues to expand our reach with the introduction of programs throughout the South Hills area, providing mental health meetups, community workshops, and QPR gatekeeper training. Our team is more visible at community events with our community partners, including the Mount Lebanon Police Department, the Fire Department, the schools, PTA, and library. Our youth-led committee, the Outreach College Crew, works directly with our program manager and our co-hosts of our successful podcast, Teens Tap In, as well as serving as junior board members. The infusion of the voices of youth in this agency has been beneficial to all of us and cannot be understated. Our counseling services run by Clinical Director Caitlin Pry show intakes on the rise and sessions increasing. We are seeing a higher level of need in our clients, and our counselors have stepped up to take on these cases. We are excited to continue groups this coming year for social skills, as well as a new evidence-based DNA program, Project TND, towards no drug use. We have also recently received a grant from the Airy Real Foundation for the implementation of the Body Project, which provides a forum for high school-aged girls to confront unrealistic appearance and beauty ideals with the ultimate goal of engaging them to develop healthy body image and self-esteem. The program has been delivered to more than 1 million women around the world and has repeatedly been shown to effectively reduce body dissatisfaction, negative mood, unhealthy dieting, and disordered eating. We're looking for school partners to schedule this program for 2025. The Mount Lebanon allocation received by our agency continues to provide those free parent consultations, but most importantly, partially and fully subsidizing individual counseling sessions for our Mount Lebanon clients. Having the ability to fully subsidize clients removes an enormous obstacle for those seeking affordable and accessible mental health counseling. It's hard enough for people to pick up the phone and ask for help, and if we remove that obstacle, they're more likely to do so. We never turn anyone away due to an inability to pay. From November 2023 To the first of this month, counselors provided 1,375 sessions. Anxiety and OCD panic and adjustment are joined by family issues this year as the top 3 reasons clients seek out our services. We have impacted over 1,500 kiddos and adults this past year with our presentations, our orientations, community workshops, and programmatic offerings. In the US, there are 300 individuals for every 1 mental health provider. In Pennsylvania, that number is 400 to 1. The accessibility of our services couldn't be more critical. Outreach's team includes professional, committed counselors who have embraced our culture of care and connection. They are doing the real work at Outreach, and it is a privilege to work with each and every one of them. It is essential that Outreach is able to hire and retain these counselors who work with kids and families to address their mental health challenges. We want to be certain that they continue the professional development as well to meet the unique challenges of our clients and the community we serve. Our ability to hire and retain professional counselors has become even more of a challenge in the past 3 years. We are certainly not alone in the industry, but as a nonprofit, when a counselor resigns, they cite hourly rate as one of the main reasons. They love the culture, they love the learning environment, but those benefits don't pay their bills. We fully recognize that there are usually tough budgetary constraints on the commission and that this year will be no exception. The increase we are requesting will ensure that we are keeping pace with those costs required to deliver the level of services expected by this commission and the community we serve. We thank you for your consideration of our request. We appreciate your continued support of Outreach's mission and vision.
Certainly at the meetings, I hear the stories about, oh, this person was great, but he or she is moving on. It sounds bad to say it's all about the money, but they're trying to feed a family. They're doing this. I feel for them that they're trying to do the right thing, but they're also trying to take care of their families. I have a question about an additional level, and it's mostly just more background. We asked the library when they were here, but just to get a sense, you request item 3 for additional money, provide pre-programming in partnership with the library. I wonder if you could talk a bit more about that.
So the wonderful relationship that we have with the library is that it is it's so organic. So they come to us and they tell us what their needs are. And they say, we have kids that are really anxious. So we had Maggie went in and said, well, let's do something called a mental health meetup where we can check in with the kids. It can be voluntary. We'll do like 5 to 6 week sessions and they can come and meet with me and we can do some deep breathing and mindfulness and just very surface level kinds of things. She's now known as the anxiety lady by the middle school kids at the library. It's adorable. I think I need to get her a t-shirt for Christmas. But it's one of those things where she sits down with the staff, with the crew over at the library to say, what are you seeing? What are your needs? And that's the beauty of us being a community-based agency, is that the bureaucratic level is not there. It's Maggie seeing what the needs are and what's necessary. And if they do need something that is more evidence-based, she's going to go out and find it and bring it in and get the proper training. So like the Body Project, the 2 counselors, it was our clinical director, one of the counselors who were both trained, very intensive day, like 8-hour program to be trained. So those are all the things that we do with the library. They tell us what they need and we come in with what they are asking for.
I mean, I've been easy, items 2, 3, and 4, I've asked to be put above the line. Additional contribution, additional service, and also the maximum subsidy.
Yeah, I agree with Steve. I think we'll talk about this later, but Andrew brought this up in relation to the person who's working with the police. And we talked about other areas where we can get data, and even if it's just not data, just anecdotal information about trying to share stories and figure out different ways that person can bring information to us and tap into the community and understand where the needs are. And I think, having a little bit of extra programming with the library and, and with the social service coordinator, I think that's the title, right? I think that's a great addition for the amount of money we're talking about.
Well, yeah, and one of the reasons that I believe there's carryover.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's why it wasn't above the line.
Yeah.
And just for your own consideration here, we're already working with Jackie at the police station. Our clinical director walked into the board meeting where Jackie was at our board meeting. And they both looked at each other and were like, I know you, and they went to grad school together, so, there's all those wonderful Pittsburgh connections, right? Exactly, so, and I'll give another anecdotal, anecdote here, which really resonates with a lot of folks. We don't know a lot of times with mental health counseling what our results are long-term, right?
Sure.
You don't know what you have prevented or what you have taken on early. I got a call a couple of months ago from a young woman who was a client 25 years ago. And she moved out of state and got married and started a family and moved back to Mount Lebanon and just happened to be on the board of a foundation, family foundation. And she said, we're looking to do some funding in this area. And they are the foundation, it's anonymous, but they are the foundation that has given us $10,000 for our annual appeal match. Unrestricted funding. They feel very strongly about allowing nonprofits to manage their money, which was very lovely to hear. But it was one of those things that it's like that we can say to our donors when we send our letters out to say, your $200 is going to be matched. It's $400. That's very impactful
Sure
for
it is.
people. $50 becomes $100. So that's a story of somebody who was here 25 years ago, but she had her own journey through all these years that we didn't know about. And then reflected back
Right.
on her time as a client and how impactful what her counselor worked with her on and how impactful that was for her throughout her life. So we don't always hear those stories, and it's nice to hear them when we do.
It's like police and fire. How do you figure out the accident that doesn't happen, or the
Exactly.
building that doesn't break
Right.
down?
It's the preventative nature of what the work that we do, the education, the prevention, and the intervention. We are working to make sure that there are those issues do not occur.
We have one other question. I know Andrew has mentioned in the past that there's been carryovers with
Yeah.
outreach team. Is it a question of just not enough staff to implement some of those programs?
That's a great
Is it-
question. That's a great question. And
How do
yes,
we-
that
how
is
do we
exactly.
encourage that money
That
to
is
be-
exactly
Yeah.
the issue. And Maggie and I actually, we had some turnover at the finance manager position this year. And I said to Maggie, would you please send me what you've done and how many times you've been there? So you guys will get a little note from me tomorrow, once I've looked at the invoices from the past year. But the library was actually the one that came to us and said, you've done more for us than you've billed the municipality. So I'm going back through invoices tomorrow just to make sure.
Okay. And just to add to that, the one of the challenges is that, and Mary might be able to clarify this, is that counselors that enter in, they need a level of volunteer hours before they can get to the next level.
As interns, before they
interns.
graduate,
Right,
before they
correct.
graduate.
And so what we do is we get people in, and once they get certain hours, there's
Yeah.
about the ability to make more outside of a nonprofit organization. That's where the backfill becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So we have people and they exit and we try to recruit back in. But there's some ideas that the group was thinking about to do that. So that is one of the challenges where you don't have
Right.
unspent dollars and cents type of thing. So,
And licensure takes a while to achieve, and you can't bill insurance until you're insurance credentialed. And so it's a tough road. And then when they get credentialed, a lot of times then they leave for a private practice.
I wanted to mention just a vast television audience here. That, we talked about the meetings of the culture of parents will take a child out of school for a doctor's appointment, but to say their child needs this care. No, I want them in this class. And not knowing how to overcome that, just it's there. And it's important people be aware of going, in many ways, seeing that counselor is as important as whatever that follow-up appointment with their doctor.
Right.
I don't know how to overcome it other than just talk about it, so.
Well, I
make
think
that
it's-
more people think about.
I
how
think
you
it's
address it.
important for families to make those decisions, of course, for their own families and what's in the best interest of their kid. There's absolutely this is like no judgment zone for outreach team and family services. We do believe that if a kiddo needs to be seen and they're busy after school, then, if they have a free period, it might be a good idea to come over to the agency and see a counselor. So, we have a couple of counselors who see some kids from, around during the day. And quite frankly, it's really lovely to be in the office and have kids around during the day. So it's a nice thing and it's part of what we do. So we're very happy to have that happen when it does. Yeah.
It seems to me there's less stigma now, Steve, than there was maybe even 5 or 10 years ago, but probably still some there. My dad was a clinical social worker and my sister had a degree in psychology, and they, both of them had kind of like this philosophy. It's like, if you break your arm, you go see a doctor, right? If you have a problem with your car, you go see a mechanic. If there's something going on and you need to get your head right,
Somebody, sure.
there shouldn't be that stigma of going to talk to somebody like a
Right.
professional counselor. Again, I think it's better now than it was, but probably still a little bit of stigma there for some.
Oh, there is. There still is. I mean, the kids, there's less stigma. But for the parents, there's still quite a bit of stigma. And so I think that it's important for us to continue to just put ourselves out there. I think that we've made a lot of progress in 10 years. I think so. I mean, even just changing the branding, which was funded very generously by Stoughton Farm Foundation. And our development consultant also funded by that grant. All of those things have been very important to us moving the needle in a positive way. And I think that we will continue to do so. The team led by Caitlin Fry and clinical is second to none. She's amazing. So we're very lucky that we have somebody of her caliber at the helm.
Some big shoes to fill.
Yes, I don't know about that, but
Well, and since it is Mary's last appearance before the commission. in terms
I get a
of budget,
Gatorade dump or something. One right there.
I just wanted.
You hadn't looked behind
I
her.
did, I was like, Ian's back there. I just wanted to make sure.
I just wanted to thank Mary for her leadership with
Yes.
outreach, because I think Mary is everything that you want in an executive director. She's taken outreach, she's grown outreach. Initially, when you and I started having conversations, it was a question about how do we continue to expand our funding model so that we're not continually coming back to the municipality year over year and looking for an increase. And I want to say, at least for the last 3 years before this year,
Yeah.
if not longer, they've kept that request at the same number.
It's been relatively stable. I'm saying the number of budgets I've
Yeah.
been involved in going, it's
That's what I was
relatively
looking at too.
stable.
Yeah.
They're only able to do that because of Mary's leadership and what she brought to the organization.
And my
Right.
finance committee
Well,
too.
that.
They're very helpful. They're amazing. And
Yeah.
we talk a lot about this.
Yeah, so I think just for this group to understand, because you do have a substantial, for our budget purposes, just to give you an idea of the stewardship of the safeguards that are in place in the last few years, is that we moved to, I would say, a little higher professional level, and with which we account for our transactions and how we look at the dollars and cents. And most recently, as Mary said, the finance manager position turned over, and we opted to outsource it to an accounting firm that brings that expertise in. And it's about it's a little less than if you had somebody employed, but we get good service there. The other piece is we have an outside, what we call friend of the agency, who's with a large accounting firm in Pittsburgh that looks at what we do. His comment is for the size and organization that outreach is, the financial information and the productivity that we get out he's not seen that in a group this size, meaning our budget's $500,000.
Right.
What we do in terms of internal controls, reporting regularly, it was quite impressive. So my point to the group is that there is an underlying concern and safeguard of the assets and quality with which is higher than you'd anticipate in a small organization such as outreach in terms of budget. But the financial wherewithal is at a higher level. And that's a tribute to a lot of people that are on the board that have a lot of expertise and friends of the agency that will come in when things change. And that also bodes very well when we look at getting grants, because the internal financial statements are very closely married to what audited financial statements would be. And so that gives a little bit of a difference. But I will say that there are a lot of agencies, a lot of groups that are supporting mental health that are chasing the same dollar. So it's greatly appreciated that you contemplate increasing that. But I want you to know on the backside of it, there's a very good stewardship and safeguarding of those assets. So it's a small organization that has a lot of engine behind it.
And the other thing I just wanted to share, because I don't know that we have shared this before, and Steve is well aware of this. Jeff, you might have been at one of the meetings where we talked about this. Nonprofit accounting is unique. So when I get a grant notification letter, congratulations, you got this grant, and it's June 26th of the year, our fiscal year, and we don't get a check until October, we're counting all of that income that year. And so all the expenses are coming in 2 years and we're spending down. So when you see on our annual impact report, you're looking at it going, this is a little upside down a little. It is because the restricted funds are being released every month. We have a net asset detail report that we watch those restricted funds very, very carefully to make sure they're being used for exactly what the intention of the foundation has been. So not a lot of people understand that, even to the point where when we had the finance committee meeting this month in November, we have a new member of our board who's a younger CPA and has worked very, very closely with a lot of nonprofits. And she said, well, wait a minute, you've got the money, the deposit was in November. And I said, yeah. And she goes, I said, well, I got an email like October 22nd for one and October 25th for the other. She goes, they need to be in October, even though the deposit was made like November 2nd and November 4th when the checks came in. So even though it's the same fiscal year, we want to make sure that we're making sure, like to Steve's point, that we are doing exactly what is required of us to be as transparent as possible.
You need a clean audit.
We get a clean audit every year. So I do not anticipate that being an issue.
No.
Are there any other questions or comments from the financial or treasury side of the house?
Thank you for what you do.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Soft fit, actually.
Thank you very much. Are you, any more questions for us? Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Enjoy the
Thanksgiving.
rest of the week. Enjoy. Stay warm next week. I think it's gonna be
Oh, I know, it's gonna be
winter. Thanks again, guys. Thank you. Bye.
All right, moving on to capital improvements. Budget page 72, budget binder 193.
David's here to beat up.
Sorry?
I said David's here to beat up.
Oh, would you like me to come up?
Not yet. You don't need to come up just yet. Stay in your corner. Yes, sure.
I'm with my ring man.
Get your cut man ready.
I'm ready.
Thank you, Commission. So we generally run through, capital improvements. We are, this year funding at a level of 14.4 million across all funds, for capital improvements as of, the manager's recommended budget. These are coming from funds, including the general fund, sanitary sewer or the sewage fund, stormwater fund, as well as a $5 million proposed debt service. We'll run through those projects that are deemed within the debt service portion of the budget, of that new bond issue to discuss, because I think we're gonna have to carve that out, as we discuss as we go through. But we'll first start at service level 1, within capital improvements, which is your sanitary sewer improvements. These are mandated by the consent order and EPA. This is going up from 3.85 million in years past to 6.2 million, with dedicated projects coming that you've seen. Some have had grants applied for. Not Grow Greener, I'm sorry, it's water grant. Is it a Grow Grant? Yep.
Yeah.
Grow grants and those types of things. So we expect that construction to increase next year. We've already seen it tick up this year and get closer to the 3.8 million than it has in years past. Next is street reconstruction. Street reconstruction is increasing by 75,000 this year, just based on quantities and where we're at. It is increasing by 75,000 from the general fund increase to a tune of 2.275 million for 2025. Stormwater management, these are the net funds that are remaining after operating from the stormwater management fund. So this year it's increased. This is primarily due to the increase in the fee. So next year will go up to, it'll go up to $10.13 per month per ERU, or about $121 per ERU next year. So that increased funding, you're starting to see this net capital number starting to increase, which is nice, which is what we expected. So that was in the tune of more like the $300,000 range in years past, maybe even less. So we're starting to see that pick up. Next is, we are closing to the end of the lease of the front end loader. So this is the lease that we pay on the front end loader that we turn over every 5 years. That to make sure that we have the best piece of equipment for a very highly utilized piece of equipment in our public works department. Next is part of our large truck replacement. Large truck replacements, yes, they've grown to 282,000 for next year. This is unfortunately the market that we're living in. We are waiting up to 18 months to 2 years to get the truck. These trucks are replaced 2 on, 1 off. So the big, huge dump trucks that we do have, we replace 2, and then we take 1 year off. We're still on a year. This is a year that we need to replace in 2025. The carpenter's van replacement, this was a 14-year-old replacement for our carpenter. Last year, we had our plumber's van replaced. This will be in kind, similar to that, with an upfit specifically designed for our carpenter, who takes care of all buildings, parks, those types of things as needed, into which he can do. So that would be replacing that van there. The Public Safety Center exterior improvements, that is phase 2. So we completed phase 1 this year. It was funded in 2023. The bids came in too high. We ended up rebidding it out in 2024. Those have been completed for 2024. And so now we're on to the sides of the building. So this is similar to what we did with the municipal building a number of years ago, where we did the roof first, tackle that piece of the building first, and then start attacking the sides for water penetration. Next is the ice rink chiller replacement. There'll be more information on that, but that is the first of the projects to be dedicated within the bond issue. Just as this has been an ongoing issue since November of 2023, correct? November?
Correct.
November of 23, look at that, I remember that. So that's the ice rink chiller replacement. There is some news on that. I will let Mr. Janellen and Mr. McGill explain that here in a second. Next is a swimming pool filtration. The commission did fund a study from Councilman Hunsaker for what to do with the swimming pool filtration system, in addition to other improvements that can be done while that's being done as well. So that is another project that is under that bond issue as well. That's funded at $786,000.
Councilman is not a person, it's somebody.
Yes. Next is the public sector boiler and HVAC controls replacement. These are just upgraded maintenance at the 20-year mark of the building. Now getting into the 22nd year of that building, that it's time for these things to start coming to the end of their useful life, to be replaced with the most efficient hot water boilers and HVAC equipment in order to make sure that it's running efficiently for the Public Safety Center. Next is the tennis court reconstruction phase 3. So we just completed phase 2 this year. This will be phase 3. Any remaining monies from indoor tennis will be used towards this project as well for the capital improvements. So we'll be using some monies towards that for phase 3, as well as we have done in years past. We're continuing that project to replace all 3 courts, all 3 court sets that are under the bubbles. This will complete that project. That project is, again, in the another HVAC upgrade, again with the 20-year mark of hitting the HVAC in this building. So these would be the start of the HVAC upgrades for this building is also in the pipeline for 2025. The final phase of Meadowcroft Park ADA is service level 13. This is for the basketball court area. This has not been done yet. So this is that phase 3. So we've undone the other 2.
What are the details for that?
It's the lighting upgrade, the ADA ramp to get to it needs to be completed to have all the access upgrades to that court. It'll be paved and all the landscaping that goes around it.
And to tie back to a memo, go back to October 25th, the items, 11, 12, 13, those are also to be funded with following funds.
That's correct.
Correct.
That's correct.
Everything from 8 through 16, Steve.
Next is the tennis court lighting 1 through 8, tennis courts, 1 through 8 lighting. So this would replace, all the poles, and lighting for those courts at the tennis center. They are past their useful life, they need to be replaced. Next is the tennis center pickleball court construction. This would convert, courts 1 and 2, to pickleball. They would be dedicated with the special sport court, the acrylic coating, similar to, I believe, what's at North Meadowcroft. Finally, number 16 is the tennis center fencing. So this would be all fencing that needs to be replaced or repaired at the tennis center to fully bring it up to date for all of our tennis courts. So those are all the funded projects for 2025. Again, like mentioned by Manager McGill, projects 8 through 16 are funded through the bond issue.
I have a question on number
10.
17.
And it's not, okay, sorry.
How does, for sidewalks, we've approved a certain amount of money already for the project that will be in motion soon.
Correct.
And then I think we said we would revisit that until we make progress on the other one. So presumably each year we'll bring that back up and discuss money. How does the number in 17 relate to, is that above and beyond what's already been approved or discussed?
Correct.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
And is that,
That would be for anything outside of Woodland.
got it? And how did we come up with that number? Does it relate to a specific project or is it just a lump sum of money?
It's just a lump sum of money.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
I would ask that we can look at that later, and put that on there.
Yeah, and that was my intent when I went through the budget, because commission has the ability to use unassigned funds, which I do not to balance the budget.
Yeah.
But the other thing was, I think I talked a little bit about timing.
Right.
Since we haven't really completely finished out the Woodland process yet, we've got to make a decision. Commission's gonna have to potentially adopt a resolution to fill in the gaps for the residents that have not yet signed on to the program. By the time we put that out to bid, it would be constructed during this construction season. Realistically, by the time we go through the process and get another neighborhood on board, I don't know how realistic it is to think that we would be able to do a project in 2025, but more realistically be in 2026.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I know we've got constraints. I think we should try to move that stuff forward as quickly as we can. Just the nature of the comments we got recently, and I'm sure the comments we're gonna continue to get related to mobility and especially sidewalks. I'm not saying we're delaying by any stretch. I just think we should really find a way to push that stuff forward.
Yeah, and it seems that we sort of streets automatically get funded and it seems sidewalks do not. And I think that that's something that eventually needs to be addressed.
Well, we fund streets from a maintenance standpoint. This is an expansion of the sidewalk network, so a little bit different, but I understand your point.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not opposed to the expansion of the sidewalk network. I think as a walking community, that makes a lot of sense. I just try to balance what I include in my recommended budget with the available resources we have. Commission has the ability to allocate funding. Worst case scenario, if you allocated funding for 2025 for an expansion and you don't get to a project in 2025, it could be a carryover for 2026. So.
Right, and I'm trying to get a grasp of going through my first budget, but I definitely know that that's, every survey that we see, everything that comes up, it's just that is kind of the number one item, and I don't know that we're being as aggressive enough in addressing it as we could be.
The one thing in the budget is, and I appreciate the financial conservatism of, this budget's put together with all the requests back in September. We get to now and then Andrew's gonna say, well, now we know exactly how much money came in. And usually it's higher than we had anticipated, so usually it allows us to be able to, Keith had the load in line to say, okay, we're able to fund not everything. I'm looking at the Bird Park stream restoration and knowing that not everything can go above the line, but my point is that, that conservatism, knowing that we're gonna look at it at this time of year and say, your point, what can we, the commission puts unassigned funds, and two, just what may be available to spend that was not anticipated back in September.
But also, I understand what Jeff's saying. I mean, there's nothing stopping us from saying, let's put $500,000 into sidewalk expansion every year and just put it in there and roll. I'm not saying we should, but there's nothing stopping us from doing that if it becomes a priority.
Yeah, Keith has constraints We don't.
But if you say, let's put $500,000, I mean, we'll figure it out.
But to Commissioner Silverman's point, I mean, I think we could do it as outside of the budget process. You could also say, all right, for, every percentage point above 15%, which is your goalpost if you're on assigned funds, you could say,
Say
okay,
that
well,
goes to
0.3%, 0.3%, you can take right off the top and dedicate right there. That can be administratively done and assigned, that it's sitting there when the sidewalk discussion does come up, because ultimately, I guarantee you that Woodland, when it goes out to bid, may be different than what we have sitting there. Maybe more, maybe less, but you then have, that decision's already being made that you're trying to move that forward. Those types of decisions can be made by the commission to say, hey, we would like you to do that.
Commissioner Silverman, the comment you made about being a skunk in the room. My turn.
Skunk in the room.
Well, because this isn't just about sidewalks, right? And I think I've told you all this before, right? Ultimately, right, understanding our public right of way is a broader discussion.
Mhm.
If a sidewalk is a tactical solution to a strategic problem, like a speed bump is a solution, it's not necessarily the right solution in every circumstance. So there are other things that we might want to put that money at. Building on Mr. McCreary's comment that you put 0.3% against sidewalks. Well, that's just sidewalks, but we might want to do other types of road treatments.
Stuff like that,
Right.
sure.
So if we're gonna think about going down that type of path, I would just make sure that we're
Right.
empowering the mobility conversation rather than just saying sidewalks.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, but I think in the specific case where we had the engineer's report, we have 7 areas where it's pretty obviously needed. And I don't think that's a detractor from any kind of mobility conversation.
No,
You know, those seven
I'm not suggesting it is, I'm just saying, that at some point, right, there are limited resources.
Sure.
And how do we, recognize that, look, this commission isn't going to sit down and look at every intersection and look at every dynamic. We
Yeah.
have a mobility board now.
Right.
Let's ask them to prioritize,
Mhm.
knowing where the buckets of money are.
Yeah. But even that kind of creative thinking where you say, a certain kind of thing triggers X amount of dollars and you say, hey, let's put that into place for 5 years and see how it goes. And then next commission maybe says, hey, it's been great, let's continue, or we didn't use it, let's get rid of it, that kind of thing. It's kind of like lotto, right? There's a couple things the lottery goes to that it's almost earmarked just for that specific purpose. Right?
Boulder, Pennsylvania.
There you go.
Every day.
Every day. So segueing off that, and I was not intending it, so thank you, Andrew, to Andrew. Yes, an idea would be for traffic calming would be another one, right? So want to make sure we bring up to the November 7th memo from Gateway Engineers for the
Yes.
Scrubgrass project.
Mhm.
At a number of 112,000. So that's not in this budget currently. So is that something we want to
Oh,
put
yeah.
into the
Yes.
commission?
At least on the conversation.
And
Yeah.
what was, I'm sorry.
I will reprint this for you at intermission.
The bollards, the striping.
112,500.
Yeah.
Yep. Any other questions on capital?
Mhm. Run with it. Shh, 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 shh.
Market's pretty good, move quick.
Say again?
Market's pretty good, move quick.
That's not what you said a week and a half ago.
I know. It's been really crazy.
Okay,
The
so,
market hit a record today.
Yeah, but the bond market is a different monster.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Let's talk about the stock market.
okay, so what I'd like to do is briefly run through what we have so far on the list. If there's any other comments, we can add them to it. Take a brief recess. I will print it out and
Great.
make sure we're ready to go, and then we can move forward from
We're
there.
right there now. So,
Yeah.
We're good.
this is gold.
So there are some adjustments that have been done so far that are already done just based on what we have. So there's some slight modifications with block parties. We missed a revenue mark there. We talked about earned income tax increases and real estate transfer tax decreases. So those are marked here within the budget for amendment. So you have other items on here that aren't funded yet and how you would like to proceed with them. The grant received for the Fire Training Center at $621,000, that was not earmarked in 2024 or 25 at this time. So this is money that then releases general fund dollars, and how the commission would like to handle that is up to you.
Because technically that's already been paid for. So
Correct, that
it's
was
just
paid
a
with
matter
general fund
of,
dollars, so this is then releasing those.
and that came out of the general fund.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct.
I just don't have we haven't executed paperwork yet because I don't have the grant
Yeah,
docs yet because they awarded, I can't remember how many grants across the state, but I've been in constant contact with our person and she said it's coming. We just had a ton of these to get out,
I
so.
understand. Okay.
We have additional revenue that if the tennis racket, the racket center tennis pro is funded, the additional revenue would then need to be funded as well. Okay, so we have some slight modifications to things that were caught within the budget and or additional information that's come through. We had some increases for indoor for instructors and credit card fees. We had our health insurance go down from a budgeted 15% to a final number of 10.5%.
That was from shopping it.
No,
Oh,
negotiation from our broker.
yeah.
Yep. So additional teen center supplies, this is for the teen center program for 6th to 8th graders, just a slight modification there. We had talked about the taser replacements and the traffic scales replacement being swapped, so that's what this is doing here. Here are all the other items that were discussed at the prior meetings. So we have the community satisfaction survey, the paid summer internship, this is both in the public information office. An additional e-resources appropriation for the library, the 2-man lift at the recreations and ice center, full-time racket pro at the racket center. MRTA increased appropriation of $298,000. This is the full amount. This budget has not been passed. It will be discussed on Wednesday night at the MRTA meeting. The employee retention from Chief Haberman discussed. For that program, the drone program equipment at $24,310, both in the police department. Public works items included expanded brick replacement, root damage sidewalk repair, the bottle filler fountain conversions, that's nice fast. Parks maintenance, we have preventative fence maintenance for an increase there. The street tree program evaluation and increased forestry service. Anything highlighted in that orange color is flexible, is scalable, can go up or down depending on where you'd like to go for that. Things that were discussed this evening, you have the Mount Lebanon Partnership increased funding to their full amount of $30,000, so that's an increase of 10. Historical Society is an increase of 2,500 to their full request of 10. Outreach is an increased funding request of 6,000 for all 3 of their line items or service levels that they requested. We talked about sidewalk installations. We had not set a dollar amount, but there is the potential to increase and set aside money for sidewalk installations and then the scrub grass traffic calming.
Line item in the budget for the sidewalks was what, 130,000?
Yeah.
Which is just a placeholder.
I just, the number just, everybody's thinking about a number that just.
Are you sending this around, Andrew?
I will print it out.
I was gonna print it out.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. Well, we have to take a quick pee break.
I think Woodland's number was 500 and so forth.
Yes, no, there were 400 and change, right?
470, I think.
Yeah.
470.
So that's where we're at this evening. We can come back in 10 minutes and discuss. Sound good? You're fine. All right, let me put these back up on the screen. Let me put these up on the screen. So,
What?
I have a hunch on where you're headed, but I just.
let's first discuss the 2024 grant received. We want to recognize all of it for budget purposes.
If you're pretty confident that's coming in 24.
We've been awarded it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The paperwork.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, it's been.
We're getting it sooner or later.
Yeah,
I don't see any downside to that.
and it's a reimbursement grant, so when we get the funding, when we get the bill for the fire training,
Mhm.
Send that in
Yeah.
for reimbursement.
Okay, so our number now is funds available or things to be funded is at 888,000. So this red number at the top. Okay. So we're there. So we can go through each item, like Commissioner Flynn had mentioned at break. That if we were to fund everything right now, everything as assigned here and shown, we'd still be at a positive 170. That does not allocate anything for sidewalks specifically for sidewalk installations. We left that blank here. This number is blank right now. We can go there, but we can go down through each item that's remaining to whether to be funded or not. I think it's worth some discussion on some of the items. I think there were certain questions we had. While it would be easy just to fund everything and move on, I do think some may warrant some further discussion and maybe not. I may be incorrect there, but so community satisfaction survey items. I know this has been brought up and we've talked about survey fatigue. So I don't know if this is a place order you'd like to dedicate for the 2025 budget or if it's something that is for the future, but
I'd prefer to hold off a year, to reconsider it. I do think that there's some survey fatigue, and I don't think that we implement enough of the information that we receive from surveys. On the other hand, I want to be very clear that I'm very appreciative of that board and all their hard work, and wanting to do that. I just don't know that that it's the ideal time.
Well, I'm not sure it's not named somewhat inappropriately. I think more, Laura, can I ask Laura to come up and talk for a minute? My concern with it was much more about the ability to do what the board wanted to do, which was to measure if typically underrepresented groups were feeling welcome in Mount Lebanon. And you had done some work on looking at surveys that were being done nationally. Can you just tell them a little bit about that?
Sure.
Because there were some questions about it.
The importance of this for this to be a scientific survey and benchmarked across the country. So this would be a national survey company that would come in and make sure it's scientifically accurate. It wouldn't just be a Survey Monkey type thing where it could be stuffed. We had, for example, some questions about satisfaction in the comprehensive plan surveying, but the demographics were incomplete. So either it was a very non-diverse sample or people were not comfortable sharing their information. There was an awful lot of did not disclose. So the CEB had requested that there be a survey that would be disclosed so that they could more carefully pinpoint where issues were in order to benchmark them for another survey 2 years out or whatever the period may be to see if there was improvement on their efforts.
This is really DEI.
Yeah, I'm not crazy interested in the DEI survey either. I feel like we've had so much work on DEI and we have a pretty good list of things that the groups that got together want us to do. I'd rather spend that money on implementing some of those suggestions.
With the recent election and we have a candidate who said he was gonna deport how many people?
9 to 11 million.
And so
Yeah.
are people gonna be that much more reluctant to disclose
Oh,
any
hadn't even
information
thought
on
of
the
that,
survey? And so I think I'd be,
hadn't even thought of that. Thank you.
you're welcome. So I'd just be hesitant to do the survey right now.
Yeah, just to be clear, I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying we've got a lot of info and I think we've got a lot of direction too. And if not things that we can immediately approve, because there were some things on that list that the commission looked at initially and said, we're probably not the organization to implement these, that might be better done by some third-party groups and nonprofits. But certainly we should, I know that stuff's already been resurfaced and hopefully will be worked on by the CEB. So I feel like, you know, maybe the CEB can bring us something for future discussion as to put some money behind some of those recommendations, which is kind of, we had some budgetary information for some of that stuff, but not all of it.
And to that point, 2,000 of this 32,000 was an allocation request of them to put toward MLK Day and Juneteenth. So we kind of put it together because it was the CEB request. So if you wanted to pull the survey out and maybe consider
funding
Funding
together,
that
that would be
would-
helpful.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah, they're
Like
really
2,000.
working hard on MLK right now, and I think the Juneteenth could use.
Yeah, let's
Definitely.
fund just those
Yeah.
two things, you know, like, if we want to show our support, so I think we should fund those two.
Isn't there an organization doing Juneteenth?
There is, but the hope was to work and help amplify that.
Help amplify it, give them some more money.
That's what we do with the partnership. We give them money to do it. As opposed to us doing it.
Right.
What are you, what are you,
We're talking-
what are you getting at?
I'm getting at, I don't need the CRB to do it.
No, no,
I
they're not.
need the
Yeah.
municipality to provide money to support the organizations that are doing it.
Well, the MLK Day is being done by CEB. It's a day of volunteering. And they are pulling it together with their volunteer hours in the name of the municipality.
This is a program they're putting on.
Yeah. Program.
We're talking about a $2,000 ask, right?
Yeah. It's not a lot of money.
I mean,
But
look,
even if they don't use it for this year, maybe they could use it in preparation for
Next year, yeah.
And I think to.
I'm hoping it'll
I mean,
grow.
For $2,000, and say, yeah, I think to get to Commissioner Flynn's point going, let's think strategically down the road of who's gonna be the one doing the work. But I just think we have to have a lot of discussion on $2,000.
I mean, look, I think two things. When we had those discussions about, because every one of the 5 DEI groups came in and asked for money. Every one of the 5 DEI groups came in and wanted to run programs under their names, right? Almost all of them wanted to continue past the 1-year mandate. So, and we were very, deliberate about, this was a program, we've got the feedback, the recommendations are coming to the commission, we're gonna discuss it with staff, figure out where these things go. And at that time, we talked about if there are events or things that, we talked very much about a DEI calendar and doing certain events, and then we had conversations about what Andrew's talking about. Are they internal, are they external? But we had always talked about funding some of those events, whether they're bigger municipal events, separate DEI events. We never determined what they would be. So I think we need to be clear at some point with the groups that are gonna move these forward, whether we're telling them, come to us with requests for 2,000 for an event, or don't, but come to us with the group that will then ask for money. I think we need to be real clear what we're telling them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, Juneteenth has their own group.
Right.
They do. MLK, this is the first year doing it with the school district to try to do a day of service.
Yeah.
I don't think it's big enough to be its own group, to be honest.
Mhm.
Not,
Which is
not in the
fine.
very
Yeah.
first year, for heaven's sakes, but
Right.
yeah, they don't need much either.
Yeah.
You think I'm characterizing it okay?
No, you're exactly correct.
I
Okay.
think
This
it's
is
no,
being clear about what their ask was, so.
Yeah.
yeah,
So how much? The survey was 25, wasn't
It
it?
was 30, based on,
25 is
based on the
30.
cost that we
Okay.
got estimates for.
So do we want to do the next line now?
Do we,
That sounds good.
So,
he moved the 32 and made it 2.
okay,
Yeah.
perfect to CRB programs.
I'm in favor of the paid summer internship, CIO, based on Laura's presentation to us.
Yep,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yes.
Some names.
Also good with the library.
So I just wanted
Thank you,
to
Laura.
express the library did get received a 3.5% increase from RAD, so they will be able to cover that, but if you want to put additional increase to
Let's come back to it.
the ice rink 2-man lift.
Yes.
Sure.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna correct, I mean, yes.
Or 2, 3.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, I'm fine. Yeah. Sorry.
Full-time racket pro, tennis center.
Look at the numbers, that does pay, is it the offset?
Almost.
It's $7,000.
It's about a $7,000 delta based on an estimate.
Okay.
Do you,
Then good.
Yes.
I'm okay with it. David's okay with it, yes?
Commissioner Brilli?
Absolutely.
we're spending a lot of money on
We are
tennis.
spending a lot on
Like
that.
an enormous amount of money on tennis this year.
We're making an investment.
Yeah.
I just question whether we need to.
I think, we've, it's a big asset of ours, tennis center. We certainly have a vacancy, we've certainly heard the demand for needing a pro. And what appeals to me is that it's not exactly, but pretty close to cost neutral. I think that's relative. If it were just 109,000 unto itself, one thing, but to say, we're talking about a difference of 7,000, maybe 10. And so that's why I'm more inclined to say yes.
With that being the case, I'm good with it.
Mertz,
We have to set aside Mertz's.
yeah, it's one of those things, it's one of those things where Ann and I plan to have a very difficult conversation with the board, Mertz board on Wednesday. We have a motion to say, look, folks have to be looked at. They need an outside person, forensic accountant to really, I mean, it's like 3 different directors over 3 different years. They need to, get some things organized, if you will. And so our proposal is to say something to the effect of, we'll fund in round numbers, 650,000 of the budget. Take out the proposal for these two, there's gonna be 4 staffers. Let's look at it 5-6 months down the road after this accounting study is done. And they turn out that we look at the accounting study and say, sure, fine, fund it. But that's where, sort of my suggestion to this group is to say, keep whatever, again, I'm pulling 650 out of the air because that's something we talked in the previous meeting of 650 versus 835. And I'm using boxcar numbers here. But whatever that difference is, to keep that set aside, thinking that we may be spending that middle of next year.
I think we ought to just say it is not just a forensic accounting. What we're really requesting is that they look at the numbers, but why it's costing what it's costing, because it doesn't cost other towns as much as it costs us. So we're looking at, are there other operational models that we might be able to adapt, et cetera, to bring our costs more in line with what's going on in other places.
When you say the operational models, you're talking about that sheet that we looked at that showed different services, not necessarily that Mertz is charging Mount Lebanon less than, say, Scott. On
I
a,
understand your question.
Yeah.
we're being charged more because we're a higher percentage of the overall, right, but.
Yeah, no, that's
Sure.
okay. Yes, that's based on the number of calls that come from Mount Lebanon versus the other towns.
Right.
We're at 46%, I think it
I
is.
did use
No,
some
we're
sense.
talking more about what it costs our citizens
general.
essentially in general.
Yeah.
Than it does in other towns. The sheet that
It's an overall,
prepared.
it's an overall look at just
Yeah.
the operational model that they're
Right.
using.
Right. Yeah.
Determine if there's a better model that
So
Yeah.
should be considered.
to that end, there's a potentially a better model for the MRTSA communities.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean it's the same model as if it were for Mount Lebanon alone. Right? This study that you're asking for, which I fully agree, right? This study should be done. But this study is going to look at MRTSA broadly,
Right.
right? As opposed to what's best for Mount Lebanon.
Correct.
And those can be two very different answers. And I think the question in my mind is, are we going to get to the ultimate answer that, is the best for our community? By just saying, hey, make sure that MRTSA is being as optimized as possible within the structure that's already in place.
And the other piece is whatever those recommendations are, how long it's gonna take to affect those recommended changes.
Well, the reality, but my concern is that the changes are not going to be drastic enough.
Well, we talked about this last meeting. I thought that whatever that we're calling that survey or whatever it is, was going to be like, hey, what are the best practices of ambulance companies? How are they operating? Not just how are we trying to make MRTSA more efficient so that it costs $640 instead of $790.
Right.
So I think there might be some like, hey, this is how good ambulance companies
Right.
operate. I would assume that would apply to Mount Lebanon, but that doesn't answer a potential question, which is, what do residents want from an ambulance service? Which, I don't know, maybe they have that kind of information. I don't think we've asked that.
What if we framed it this way? We will pay for the study. Mount Lebanon Because I want the study and I want to control, right, what they're analyzing and what the results are. I don't want it coming through 6 communities. Because we carry the bulk of the cost, right? We are the ones who are gonna benefit from incremental change. So if we need to pay $60,000 for a study, you know, on services provided for ambulance, in our community and surrounding communities, great. Because then that helps inform us what path we want to go down, whether it's with or without MRSA.
I would say if this group is going to fund, we were guesstimating a $60,000 cost. It's only more likely for our motion to pass on Wednesday night for conducting the survey because Mount Lebanon's paying for it. But are there 3 votes around the table here for that $60,000 spend?
I could get behind that.
I mean, I think it's an interesting question, right? I mean, we are concerned, we want MRSA to improve. But are we sure that the study is going to get to the best answer possible by going through this filter of all these communities, right?
I'm not talking to you, I'm sorry. I was talking to you.
And that, clarifying, I was wondering what you're answering. Because the question going, we talked about our proposal of a committee to review this. Does that create the filter you're concerned about is going, we're writing the check, we're picking whoever the company is that's doing this. You know, you can see we're 2 different ways of doing it. You know, I don't know if you have any strong opinions.
I mean, I'm having a little, okay, I mean, MRSA is a regional service.
Mhm.
And, you know, I don't know that there's a better way for Mount Lebanon to do it, but I think one of the issues we really have to think about is mutual aid. And the mutual aid that goes between the communities. Even if we pulled out of MRSA, you know, we still have to rely on mutual aid when things are going on and cooperation between all. We have a good functioning ambulance service that does based on the national average of, you know, times that they get to it, a very adequate and very good job. They have good numbers that way. I think that the problems with MRSA are problems that are being experienced to a great extent by all ambulance services. It's a losing business. Medicare doesn't pay what it costs to send a truck out. And we have 7 old age homes in Mount Lebanon. Now, to Keith's point, Monroeville also has a lot and they're paying less. So I think those kind of things we want to look into, dive in and figure out what's going on. But I'm not sure I like the filter of what's best for Mount Lebanon. We founded MRSA.
Well, again, for me, it's not a question of, I think you guys all know, I'm a firm believer in regional
Regionalism, yes.
initiatives. But if I'm looking at this challenge and saying, make MRSA better, that's not, that by its very nature is creating a context for an analysis that might miss a whole other set of variables, right? Move it into fire, move it into, another organizational framework. If our scope is MRSA, by its very nature, you're only looking at MRSA. You're not looking at public safety more broadly
Right.
in the context, which fails to adequately analyze the problem and define potential solutions. I would like a consultant who is willing to look at those things. Not saying that that's gonna be the right answer, but if they're not looking at it, we will never know. And I think for me, that's the dynamic that I would like to make sure we as the elected officials are looking at this broader set of frameworks that are in place that we are funding long-term and saying, are we sure that this is the model, or do we look at a different type of regional model that is going to serve us long-term?
Yeah, I was I didn't study the list that you showed me in, crazy detail, but I was shocked by some of those numbers. And I think, we have a lot of departments that get a review of practices and policies and procedures and money. I mean, we're talking about potentially doing another salary review. What did we do 5 years ago, was it? And, other than having MRTSA kind of come up with the budget and, come in with the different proportions, I don't think we've really taken a deep dive at
No, I
that.
agree. I mean, that's what we're suggesting to
Yeah.
them and
I think a lot of, to your point, Andrew, a lot of those kind of questions really can be answered by how you structure that RFP, right?
Mhm.
What are you looking for?
Right.
Right, so my point was, look, I'm not saying Mertz is doing anything wrong. I just wanna
Yeah.
understand what the different operational models are that are out there and the funding models, right? Because you can fund on a per capita, you can fund on a
Right.
per household, you can do it, right, internally where it's not through an authority, it's through some
Mhm.
other organization, that there's a handful of different models. I'm just saying, I think we need somebody to come in, take an overall look, somebody that understands the delivery of EMS service,
services.
right? What SMART's doing, which is gonna require data and stats coming from Mertz, because they have them.
Yep.
Then take a look at that in the broader context of the delivery of those services.
Mhm.
And how does that compare to what other communities or other models are out there? And should we be looking to do have a different approach?
We are one voice at the table. I agree 100%. If we can get that, guarantee it, that it's not gonna get diluted in 5 other communities who are contributing to this process, then, okay, I rescind my concern. But I think my concern is that, will we truly get that analysis?
I remember the motion, it's on the agenda. Talked about having a committee.
And we set up an ad hoc committee, of which I'm planning to be on. Because it's our money.
And you're on the finance board.
I'm on the finance board. Yeah, I mean, I figured that was done deal.
I did provide to
Yeah.
you, there's another community that's
Mhm.
not in Allegheny County, they're in Washington County. They're going through the same exercise now because they use their VFW. They're not sure how much longer that service is gonna be available through that organization. So essentially, their RFP essentially said just that. Hey, look, we need somebody to come in, tell us, delivery of EMS services. What are the different options and models that are available? Which ones, makes the most amount of sense? And just, give us the information.
And I think Commissioner Flynn's question, I think having other members of MRTSA as part of this ad hoc committee, that if in the end, whatever the resolution is, where the study people find out, I'd like to hope there's gonna be a lot more buy-in when people feel like, okay, I was on that ad hoc committee, seeing what they did, rather than this is a Mount Lebanon only expedition.
Right.
Well, I think that's gonna create, people going, don't tell us how to run our whatever, I thought we were all in this together.
Yep.
So that's what I'm a little concerned about,
Well, it's the big dog in the room syndrome. I mean, people don't necessarily like the big dog in the room, which we certainly are in this case. And I think it behooves us to cooperate with the others to try to.
And I think if you present that as Mount Lebanon is not really interested in leaving.
Yes.
Right? We are interested in its long-term viability.
Mhm.
And how do we ensure that Mertz can continue to deliver EMS services for these communities into the future?
But Andrew was not proposing that. I mean, he's proposing that we have essentially a part of it that shows what's best for Mount Lebanon. I think that would backfire on us.
Yeah, and I think, as
Well,
we've
I-
talked a little bit, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, no, go
I'm
ahead.
not saying he's not.
I think a lot of this, you're gonna form a committee, you're
Yeah.
gonna pull together a draft RFP, right?
Mhm.
I think as long as there's a comfort level with, I'll say, scope of services
Mhm.
that are in the RFP, you potentially would be okay.
Yeah, again, my concern is that we look holistically at the problem.
Mhm.
It's not just Mertz.
No, exactly.
And I'm saying this, just saying it again, but I'll say it. Is if 6 municipalities doing it in this business model makes sense, great. But if that's not the case, is this study going to tease that out?
Yeah.
And give us better alternatives? Whether it's 3 municipalities, 1 municipality, 12 municipalities, I don't care, right?
Sure, you
What's
just
the
wanna
right
know what
model?
the right model
You can
is.
call it Mertz, you can call it Disneyland, I don't
Yeah.
care. But I wanna make sure that we are properly analyzing the problem and not getting lost in the dynamics of 6 municipalities negotiating amongst each other, trying to smooth, ruffled feathers because we're the big dog. We have an obligation to work regionally, but we also have an obligation to push these organizations and to evolve these organizations to meet future demand and not just linger in a past because it feels good and we built something.
Mhm.
I would like to think, these folks, these consultants are gonna say, they've looked at other services.
Yeah,
This one works, that doesn't, this one works because of, you have these 3 options to pick from, whatever. They get some sense of, they kind of know the field. We don't, and to try and learn from that. But exactly, how's it gonna
I
turn out?
understand
don't
what
know.
he's saying. I
Yeah.
get it now.
Yeah, and ultimately, right, I want you guys to have
Yeah.
as big a cudgel as you need to push the organization forward.
Mhm.
I'm happy to support the 300,000, right?
Right.
Because again, we have to do our share to move this organization forward. But I want you also to be comfortable to say, no, because you guys are failing miserably and these other municipalities aren't willing to agree, and we need to reassess.
And the proposal to this group, making sense is to fund that 298, 920, roughly 300,000. And the exact number, because we've had enough conversations back and forth, there's something higher than the 53620, 536,200 in our books right now.
Right.
And I have a
think the
recollection, it
proposal
was something
is-
on the orders like 650,000 that we were willing to fund, because remember taking out the funding for the proposed addition of 4 staffers. I don't have the numbers in front of me exactly, I just.
Okay, so what this represents is the amount over what we funded in 23. So what's in the manager's recommended budget is the amount of money we funded for MRTSA in 2023.
Right.
This is for 2024, I'm sorry. And this would be the additional amount that MRTSA asked for. What we're proposing is saying, we'll give you the money that we gave you for 2024 in 2025, and we will hold this amount back until a study is done to determine what the best course for MRTSA is moving forward.
Okay.
I
But
think,
if we don't this is a large amount of money. So the point was to set it aside and be very cognizant of the fact that it might in fact really be needed. The study could come back and say you've got the best model you can have. I mean, they never say that, but you know what I'm saying. We're not trying to starve MRTSA.
so we know that the EMS model is not perfect. I suspect, and I have no data to prove this, that it has more to do with the lack of lobbying than
Mhm.
anything else,
I've
but
been saying that, am I not?
kind of out of sight, out of mind kind of thing with
Meeting.
residents, which in my mind would indicate really the need for kind of to surface that,
Mhm.
what do people actually believe EMS provides, or do they? I suspect if you ask 10 people, 9 of them would tell you they thought that's just provided by the municipality,
Mhm.
or the government structure. So I think with the increases we've seen in MRTSA and the movement there, I think we'd be crazy not to have some kind of survey. Whether we pay for it or whether somebody else pays for it, I trust that it can be written, the RFP in such a way it'll provide what we need to analyze, but I think we need to do that.
How do we, based on what I'm hearing, the survey could be $60,000.
Study.
So
Study.
how do we, $60,000, so how do we, for purposes of Andrew's spreadsheet here,
Add that in.
is it really 360,000 rather than 300,000? That's,
As I said, I'm willing to put an additional $60,000 in. So long as that gives us the ability, well, us, you guys, the ability to move this conversation forward
Mhm.
in an honest and serious way that's going to provide value.
For every month that you're not funding 4 new employees, that money goes down. So I don't think you need to go above that.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Right, so for every month, if we get it at the sixth, July 1st, study comes back in May, it says you need to do this. You're already you're already on the plus side of it anyway.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
I think 298 is where you need to be max. I don't think that's a problem. I think to Commissioner Flynn's point, I think what I'm hearing is they're giving you tending the authorization that if it comes to the table and people balk at the 60,000, then we have authorization to pay for it solely out of our funds. That's what I'm hearing there.
That's
So-
my proposal.
Yeah, I think we're in that position.
We would rather have it be a communal, from your side, but if needed, we're wanting the study to be done.
Yeah.
So we got
Yeah.
a path forward as far as what numbers on the spreadsheet. What there sounds like there's been
But
majority, at least, if not unanimous.
I think we have to be willing to fund that though, so that number probably should be X.
Yeah.
well.
He's saying
We're in this 300,000 is a proposed increase by 4 people for staffing.
For a full year.
Oh, I understand.
And it's like 400,000 and some change to
Yeah.
fund 4 employees for the full year.
I
So
understand, okay.
we're pulling them
It's
out.
only delaying.
Mr. McCurry feels we don't have to put the 60,000 on there.
As I haven't sat in as many meetings, of course, as Commissioner Silverman and Commissioner Wilson, but there is a rush here, in my
Mhm.
opinion. It feels very rushed.
Yeah.
That let's just take a pause for just a second. Let's take a breath. We understand that the MRSA employees are up against it right now with some things that are going on. We fully recognize that, but we can't rush to just hire more people. At least that's what it felt like, without it properly saying, okay, if it needs to be at that level, it needs to be at that level. We're not saying we can't afford that check. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying, hey, let's give time to look at it and then move forward from there.
Yeah, I wanna make
Or
sure
whatever
that,
reprieve needs to come.
yeah, I mean, I know that we have an increased number because of our portion of
Yeah.
the services based on whatever their new budget is. But I wanna make sure that that just doesn't go without having this conversation. Like, I don't wanna show up and say like, we need to do this study. And they're like, well, we don't wanna do the study even if we pay for it. Like, I think that needs to be done anyway.
Well, I think, so
Like, I think it'd be a mistake, Steve, to say like, okay, we got the money we needed, let's just keep doing what we're doing, and then we'll see you next year with another $400,000 increase.
See, I look at it as to say, walking in the room going, we are authorized by commission
For the original.
for the
amount.
536,200. That's what we are authorized by commission to spend right now. We're also, spending money for the study. That's what we are authorized.
Yeah.
The commissioners, that's what we have authority to do.
Yeah.
Whether we have money squirreled away or not, the authorization I'm hearing from real this.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We're authorized for the 536,200.
Right.
Okay.
We're just saying scroll it away because it's a large number.
Okay.
And if it's found that it's needed, and I suspect at least a portion of it would be
Right.
needed, no
Got
matter
it.
what.
Yeah.
We ought to have it, not
Okay.
have it spent elsewhere,
That's fine.
Financially.
right?
Next.
Okay, a couple of requests from the police department, for employee retention, programming and the drone programming equipment.
I was impressed by the drone presentation. I thought that they were doing some work with it, the fact they have to replace the broken drone. So I was impressed by that, so I'm pleased to yay vote for the drone.
And the employee retention was fixing the weight room and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Sounds good.
I understand that, that's fine.
Yes. Everybody understands, I believe that number
The lease.
it's a lease, it would be a 3-year commitment over
Correct.
5 years. Thought it was 3 years and they
Yeah,
only.
that was 3 years.
3 to 5 years.
Employee retention.
I thought it was a 3-year commitment. because they take 3 years to redo the weight room and stuff.
Pretty expensive though.
Yes.
I mean, you see it next year, you'll.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we just buy it?
Well, it's a lease,
But do they maintain it? and
basically,
maintain it?
it's a lease, so at the end of those 3 years,
Lease down.
you buy it for $1. So you're essentially buying it.
But it also
So if that
comes,
was-
it also should be coming with a
the cost
maintenance
per year, that
program,
would be
because all
rough.
that stuff has to be maintained.
Sounds
on a
good.
regular basis.
And the stuff that's in there is 20 years old.
And it was secondhand when it came, so that's what it wasn't, okay.
No,
I thought
they
that's what
got,
they
they
said.
got new.
Okay,
Brand new, though now, some things have been replaced along the lines. when
okay,
Right.
Treadmills have broken or
Yeah,
electricals
sure.
and so on and so forth as needed, but this would be a complete overhaul of existing
okay.
equipment.
Happy to be corrected.
They don't wear out.
No.
They have.
So I had said yay to the drone, but I don't know if anybody else is yay as well.
I'm fine with the drone. Good.
I'm okay with the drone, yeah.
We have scalable here for expanded brick restoration.
How much do we have on the brick now?
Oh, huge
60,
fan of. More than that.
90?
85 maybe.
I think here from streets add to real estate values. I'm a big fan.
Thank you. Rudy, I got another fan over here.
It's my idea to put the 25 above the line.
We have 87, almost 88,000 currently allocated, so this would be over and above that.
I think it's fine.
That's just putting the
Do it.
25. Likewise, for, actually, I have the wrong one. I'm thrilled for that too.
I got
The
left-handed.
presumptions there. The additional money for the route damage sidewalk program,
Yes.
knowing.
Do we have an understanding yet, Rudy, of what it would take to fix all those spots? I think that's what we were talking about last time,
Way more than that.
but like way more like 300,000.
Best answer.
Let's find it then.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find out, you know, like we have a movable number there.
Right.
If we go from 25 to 50, does it make a difference? Is that number
I think
300? Is it 3
Rudy
million?
talked about capacity too.
Well, that's one, number one. Number
Yeah.
two, if, I ran some numbers just based on evaluations
Yeah,
that we did,
yeah.
like walking sidewalks, marking them off. One of those 10 sections is in the neighborhood of $300,000 to $350,000 to complete at today's prices. So we can't get through an entire section. We're budgeting about between $120,000 a year. And my estimate is about 300,000 to 350,000 just to complete one of the 10 sections in the municipality.
Oh.
Yeah.
The other piece.
One of the
is,
10 zone.
Under budget.
So it's $3 million.
Capacity for
That's the
the
number.
contractor, and I'm not saying that there's not more contractors out there that can do the work.
Mhm.
They just
These are
don't
the
bid.
contractors that are bidding on the work, and
Right.
that's,
But this is our scalable number, right? So we talk about life cycle costs of this. When we look at the sidewalk proposal that came in, it was about $190 a linear foot for putting new sidewalk in. So if we have 1,000 linear feet of root damage sidewalk or areas where pavement's been pushed up and we've done cold patch, we know it's 1.9 million that we need to put toward it. So, I mean, $25,000, what's that divided by 1.9? I mean, you know, you're talking about a couple of feet of sidewalk, right?
Did we have, and what we've spent for sidewalk contractors per summer? So we've approved contract. Say again?
We've done that exercise before.
That's like 130 feet of
60,000
sidewalk.
per contract. I remember when we put the
It's a lot.
sidewalk on a contract.
We're splitting them.
What I don't know is how
Yeah,
much
it was
root
about
damage
100,000
we have.
each.
We have
100,000 each contract.
1,000
Okay,
linear
I
feet?
forget the cost per
Or do we have
contract.
50,000?
we're pulling the assessment program back
Because
in
we
again
may
this year
be-
too, so that's gonna.
Underfunding the new root damage that we have every year. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that we've ever calculated, say, root damage change year over year.
That's not that's not a constant number.
That's what I mean.
It's not a flat line because
Trees grow at
different trees, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but again, this
But we
kind of
don't
goes back
know.
to the broader tree conversation of how do you create a broad kind of framework to understand what that general trend is? So, yeah, okay, some years trees don't grow, some years trees grow crazy and roots, you know, are going to do what roots do. But on average, if we are putting X in, you know, we are staying ahead or at least at that level of maintaining and we're not getting behind the root damage. I think that's kind of how do we understand that?
To some extent, we've attacked that too, because we've used in-house crews to do some of that work
Yes.
over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
In certain circumstances where it's really, really bad, like for instance, I think I used the example of, Lebanon Avenue, right up approaching Washington Road.
Yeah.
Those sidewalk slabs, the manager brought to my attention. I knew about it also, but.
But after I said it for the
All the
third
kids,
time.
I mean, it's so close to the high school and, the church is there and the library, so, it's a really heavily used route. So we did that in-house.
But so I guess, and I'm not saying we're not doing something right, I'm saying we just don't know, right? So like in 2018, we had all that flooding. And that was happening, we started taking a numbers look at like the ice spots. We passed an ordinance that said you can't, discharge out into the street, you gotta tie in, things
Right.
like that, and we know that's made a difference. And those ice spots worked on with very specific projects that we put money to in certain areas. Maybe we need to do that and have a concerted effort toward some of these spots. What I see are areas up around Sunset and areas like that or Broadmoor or Sunset, particularly around the schools where we have more, at least in the fourth ward. And I see those cold patches with a couple inches and it's like, you can't get over that if you're in a wheelchair or if you're,
The only
You
thing
know-
I'll caution you, Mr. Grillo, is that you get better pricing and we're able to make better progress if we stay on the path that we're on right now. There was a program that was set up and approved by the commission about 15 years ago, where the community was divided up into 10 equal segments or 10 equal divisions based on the linear footage of the sidewalk in each one of those divisions. The goal initially was to do one of those 10 every year and have a 10-year program. Well, we're about 20 years into that 10-year program. We're still only about 80% through.
I would love to sit down with you and talk about that. I don't believe in that philosophy. I think you have to tackle the worst problems first.
Well, but
But I'd be happy to sit down and look at it and understand that, because I don't understand it more.
Okay.
But I don't believe in just randomly dividing up a municipality in geographic areas and assuming that's gonna be the best way to do it, especially when we have needs in some areas that might not be addressed for 10 years because they don't fit a rotation. That doesn't make sense to
I
me.
understand, and I agree with you because I made that same argument to my predecessor, that we were on a path and we were working on streets that had more damage or more severe damage, because we had done a survey of the whole community, and that was the path we were on, and then we changed that path. And we were working on streets that we worked on 2 years previous to that. So, but now we're on that path, and if we stray from that again, now we're gonna kind of skip some streets that people have been calling me about, and we're
Right,
kind of
yeah.
working our way through that same rotation. And then if we jump into a different, and we change programs now again.
Well, it's like the conversation we had with trees, with the backlog of trees, right? Where, we have a conversation of something's been on the list to be trimmed for a long time, but it doesn't get done because we show up on the other side of the municipality and then neighbors come out and say, oh, do my thing. But,
Yeah.
they're on the list for 2 minutes when Jeff's across the other side of the municipality. He's been on the list for 2 years, but it doesn't get done. So again, I don't know a lot about what you're saying with the regions, but I'd love to sit down with you and learn more.
Sure.
But just remember, sorry, I sound like that, when I was a kid, but in the 11 years of doing this, that we've had times where we said, we just want to fund more money for sidewalk repair.
Sure.
And, instead of one
And we have.
contract for sidewalk, we have 2.
Mhm.
We can do that again,
Yeah.
in just a matter of.
But I think what Commissioner Grell, if I'm hearing you correctly, your proposal is then not necessarily funding a second program for the rotation that we're on now, is to continue the rotation potentially, and then have a separate allocation for those trouble spots, up to what we can fund to.
Potentially.
Potentially.
Potentially. And
Right.
really what I'm saying is, we don't know what we don't know. Like, we
Right.
know we have an issue, right? And you probably have a good sense of where they are, because maybe they've been reported, or maybe we even have them in GIS.
Well, we have them in that, we have them in
Yeah.
our service request system too, because
Sure.
we applied those asphalt
Yeah.
patches, so.
Yeah. But, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you made the point, Rudy, that we are on a 20-year, step of a 10-year program. So clearly, this has been underfunded based upon what we've learned over this time, and we haven't gone back and said, wait a minute, we have failed to adequately fund a 10-year program. We designed a 10-year program, but we didn't fund it. We've funded a 20-year program, sounds like. So is that a fair?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the problem with what you're saying is, where do you start and stop? Because if I go out and do one property and fix the real bad ones that are up, you know, right next door, Mrs. Jones is gonna come out and say, well, you're doing that, why don't you just do this while you're here? Like you said with the trees, you know, the same thing. So where do you make a decision? Right now, we work on the street, we start at the beginning of Salem and we work to the end of Salem until it's done. Well, Salem doesn't have sidewalks on it, but anyway.
Hey, you're adding on the table. Thank you. Residents will appreciate it.
It's a fair question. I think it's that framework that you decide and say, hey, we're doing this, but we know we don't have enough money to fix all the problems. So then the question is, what's the best situation? Or what's the best framework? Is it based on need or is it based on geography? At the time, that may have been the best way to do it. I'm not saying it's not. I don't know enough about it, but.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
That, you know, because if the bids have to go out early next year, but say, make one of the discussion sessions, you know, January, February, whatever, to talk about if we fund money now, and then how that contract RFP goes out based on our discussion session, let's say January of 2025. You know, we add 25,000, whatever, or maybe a different number. And then to say, is it a continuation of the 10-year program, or is it some surgical strike, whatever? Let's make that a discussion topic for January. I want to just make it early enough for the year, so you folks have time when you're writing up, you know, the bids to say, so we're
You can
soliciting.
also
bids.
you can also receive the bids on a specified based off of that and make the funding allocation at that time.
Or I guess allocating for footage and just say, where's that footage gonna be done?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, again, just going back to what we've heard at commission meetings, what we've seen in surveys and what we've seen with the comprehensive plan, I think it's pretty clear, you know, what residents are telling us.
Yes.
Well, and I think to the kind of broader 20-year program, Andrew, is this something that the finance committee could adequately pick up and analyze and give us what should this number be on an annualized basis?
You can look at it, sure.
Or however we come to that, right? I don't want Rudy to have to come to a number.
Well, I also
We
think.
have to, I think we have to survey and see what the damage is out there right now.
Well,
You
yeah,
need-
no,
you need
but
to-
if we have 20 years of spending and 20 years of backlog, right, that number should tease out relatively quickly if you put it in a spreadsheet and analyze it.
Well, and I think based on, and I'll speak anecdotally for what we've determined is that one of the issues we have is on the sidewalk program is the sidewalks don't start until after the curbs because the same vendor is bidding on both and getting both contracts.
Right.
So you lose a couple months of sidewalk installation because the same vendor is doing both of them. Will that be there forever? I don't think so. But right now, that's the situation we've been in for a number of years.
Right.
So overall sidewalk program, unless you're doing it in-house, which I don't know that the commission wants to do that either, is you're kind of at the behest of who's bidding on your projects, no matter how much money you throw out.
Right.
You
I can't imagine it costs us less than 190, that number internal.
No.
So I know that makes sense.
Correct. I mean, even if you doubled it, you wouldn't necessarily, yeah.
There, which we did.
Yeah.
And we had that when we did put more money to it, we weren't able to complete the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
For the year. Yeah, we weren't able to complete it and we had to finish the next year.
Yeah, we learned our lesson too. We had to bid it separate, like we broke it up into chunks, like $90,000, and then we would separate those openings so that a contractor wouldn't overcommit, and they knew they had this one if they were the low bidder, once the commission approved it, and then we can move on to the next bid. And we would caution them, don't overcommit so that you can't get this work done.
And as I mentioned before, we've had the seasonality of going, there have been times where they finish early. You know, it's August, that's all the money, they've done as many sidewalks as they can. Other times it's rainy, it's whatever, you mentioned the sidewalks, the curbs.
Yep.
And they can't get it all done. So what number do we want to set aside? I'll vote for 25,000.
Yeah, I'm fine with this, knowing that we can come back to this
Yeah,
conversation.
and if we put this on, you know, discussion, like, January, you know, whatever, you know, but sooner rather than later. Yeah.
Auto fillers, I
Yes.
think that was a
Yeah,
There are a bunch of yeses.
those are fine.
preventative fence maintenance.
Sure.
Rudy, what's the tree program?
So the street tree program, our consultant that did our invasives and forestry study for us. We asked him, the bottom line is take a top to bottom look at our program. Where we're pruning, removing, replacing, planting, everything that we do related to forestry for street trees. best practices, what can we do to either improve or what do we need to improve on
Right.
efficiencies or services that we provide to the community to get things done quicker, not less, not less, not,
I know where you're going.
yeah. So, but that's basically what it is. And he gave us this number to say that this is what it would take for someone to come in, do an RFP, have them look at our program, top to bottom, make recommendations on how we can improve it.
I'm a yes, so long as I get to participate.
Yeah.
Commission. Thank you.
Once you get to participate.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. This is always, years I've been a commissioner, this has been the biggest issue in the fourth ward. Recreation came close this year, but this has always been the biggest issue. And that's less than Pittsburgh, a lot less than Pittsburgh paid when they had this same or similar study done a couple of years, 3 years maybe.
Sorry, up for evaluation, I guess, to Commissioner Flint's point. I assume you're going to someone like Oikos or whatever, someone outside as opposed to,
Yes.
you said you want to be part of it, so I don't know if you'll be.
No, he's not leading it.
No, I'm not.
This was
leaving it.
that number is-
Liaison.
Arborists, there's like a Mid-Atlantic Regional, yeah.
International Society of
It's
Architects.
coming from one of them or one of those groups.
This was the consultant, he's a PhD, the guy that gave the presentation about our forestry program. He's the one that said, yeah, I know what you're after, here's what
Yeah. Here's what it would
here's
cost
the
you.
number that you need to get
Right.
this done. Give you a report on what you should or
Good way to
shouldn't,
approach
you
it.
know, yeah, and I think there's a lot of things that.
For street trees.
Exactly, exactly, specifically for street trees.
The next one of increased forestry service, that's for trimming dormant trees.
Right.
And as I recall, there's a backlog, which is why I suggest putting that 20,000 above the line.
Yeah.
To try and trim as many oaks as we can during the dormant season, so that was,
So I heard 3 yeses for that.
Yes.
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 Easy this year.
Good.
Increase.
Partnership, I think a bunch of yeses.
Yes, we all said yes for that, right?
Historical Society increased funding,
Yes.
Yes.
yes, all right, there's 3, thank you.
Yeah.
Outreach.
Outreach's carryovers 21,600. So, less an invoice that I evidently am going to be receiving tomorrow, which won't be that much, but.
Yeah.
The 6,000 would be on top of whatever's remaining, which will most likely be 15,000 or greater.
Wow, so they already had additional
I
15.
remember this from last year, the carryover.
Yeah, and just along, what Andrew said about that community, I keep forgetting the name of that title. So bad.
Community, certainly coordinate,
The coordinator, yeah.
Social services.
Thank you.
Coordinator.
Social services coordinator, thank you.
CC.
I need to write it down.
SSC.
What you had brought up about trying to find ways to understand the needs in the community and relating that, and bringing data back to us. I keep coming back to that and it just seems like a really good idea. I just don't know how to do it. So any, I don't know how we wrap that into some of these extra funding programs. I'm assuming she's gone yet. Like Mary always, like she thinks in terms of extra programs or extra people or extra hours, I think, a couple extra hours of someone available. I don't know how that fits into this, but I think we should do it. I just, whoever's working with them.
Specifically for the police department, part of that carryover specifically work with the police department, which the social services coordinator falls under,
Yeah.
so I think
Conversation with the chief.
those are already funded and ready to go.
Yeah.
As they move forward, so I think based on the requests that they have the funding available.
Yeah, and I know they've got a job description already, so, I'm not suggesting we try to make the job into something that it's not, but I don't know how we affect that kind of information from them.
No, I don't have any problem taking the 6,000 out when you're.
No, I think it's great. I think it's great.
Remove it.
Remove it.
Right.
Talking about taking it out,
Yeah,
not
we're all
funding
supportive,
it.
but they've got a carryover.
Oh, right, I understand.
Carryover, that's all.
Yeah.
Specifically, I was just trying to mention that they have it specifically dedicated to the police department as part of that carryover or that coordination that was planned a number of years ago.
Okay.
For those types of things.
So they just said there's 21,000, maybe would it be 15?
They've had it every year. They had it
Yeah.
last year too.
Yeah.
And it's
Been that way for
Yeah.
a few years.
spend it.
Well, and they
This is another conversation we can have
Yeah.
later in the
Well,
year if something changes.
Yeah.
And two, with their staffing issues too, I
Yeah.
mean, who knows if they're gonna be able to get around to all of them
Right.
as those
needs arise. Right,
And
so
the other-
we'll make sure we'll make sure at this low of a dollar value, if that does come up and it is a need, it will be funded. We will take care of that.
And the other piece is you know, Mary Brooks is retiring. They're gonna need to hire a new executive director. I don't know what impact that will have on their budget when that happens. But that's, presumably a summer of 2025 hire, so that may also affect things, so whenever we come back to it, just something to keep in mind. For what they. I see you guys jumping to traffic calming just because that's a big number and seeing how that affects.
What are you suggesting? that we-
Scrubgrass.
Scrubgrass
Yeah.
traffic calming, it's a large number, yes, but I just thought it affects funds available, so that's why I just, the 3 votes for Scrubgrass traffic.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that leaves 109.
We're at 100.
And then Craig, you want to come back to?
Yeah, we have a top.
Library, e-resources, but they got the RAD funding, right?
Yeah, Robin said, and she's not here, she said that was scalable. If we put 5,000 in, 10,000 in, that just makes more availability for ebooks instead of 2, maybe we get 3 of, I think the conversation was like, get the John Grisham's, right?
yeah.
Your number's 211.
That's right, because you put back the.
What was that request? for
So
library?
5,800,
5,800.
yeah, I was sold by the ebooks presentation.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Finally, $5,800. That's 2 yeses. We have a
Yep,
third.
yep.
Yeah, I'll
So I
go.
see a third. Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. That's, I mean.
Some things you feel like an auctioneer.
Yeah, that's.
I got two, I got two.
It's not a legacy, I think that that's part of it. The year you have the money.
Can I know it's not on here, but instead of saying sidewalk installations, saying, traffic calming, resources and putting $30,000 in a bucket, might get spent, might not.
I guess I would.
Mobility improvements
I mean, I guess my results coming back
from the active transportation plan, that's coming in, right? So if we get some quick hits.
And look, I've long been a supporter of setting aside money for traffic calming and 30,000. I just don't know if it's kind of either or. Say if it's 30,000 for traffic calming as opposed to some money set aside for sidewalks.
I think what he's saying, if I hear you correctly, is rename it mobility improvements. And that way, if it's sidewalks, great. If it's more traffic calming, great. But,
It gives the mobility board
some
flexibility to work as opposed to just, there's a bucket of money for sidewalk. But it costs $500,000 to do a big stretch, so we're not gonna do anything, but we can buy a bunch of flex posts and paint and do crosswalks.
Yeah.
Those
some of
types of
those
things,
kinds of
right?
things.
It's smaller moves, but it's things that people can see more dynamically.
I don't have an issue with it, but I do think just because they're big ticket items, we shouldn't push them off.
No,
No,
I,
no, no.
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
no.
we've done that before with Rafferton. We kicked that can for years because there wasn't a lot of support behind it. It was a big ticket item, that
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
So I think we have to be careful, especially again, when that's an item that the residents are telling us are important to them.
but I think it's really interesting to me, the feedback we've gotten, with the improvements on Cedar. Friends of mine are all saying, wow, was this stuff always here? I just feel like you're going so much slower. And I'm like, here we go. That's why. That's how it works.
yeah, well, and
Now, that was more expensive, I
Right.
get it, but I mean, even paint sometimes makes a huge difference, so.
well, and Commissioner Grell, I think, it's like on Sleepy Hollow where we're having that we want to have that conversation.
Yeah,
That conceptually, right, is flex posts and paint.
Yeah.
Right?
Very.
And that's the kind of thing, that's kind of what I'm looking at. It's like, no, we're not installing sidewalks. We're trying to just create some momentum and give people different experiences.
Very much it could be that, right?
Mhm.
Instead of the expense of the sidewalks.
Right.
Mhm.
Knowing that in 10 years, maybe we go, oh, no, we should actually have a sidewalk here. Oh, okay. But right now, let's try something. Let's allow some dynamic testing.
Yeah.
Sounds like we
All right,
got
so if we
through
add 30,000 in for mobility improvements,
For 170.
Yeah,
175. That we need.
well, we just
that.
hold
No,
it.
I think.
You don't have to spend it all.
Yes. Hold it.
Fine.
So, we set?
Yep,
Man, you guys drive a tough line.
I'm done.
Well,
Yeah, no, go ahead.
he's giving me the no.
No.
For informational purposes, I don't know where this is going to play out yet.
Hmm.
So as part of what I had recommended for the bond issue,
Yes,
one of those items is the largest up there, which is the ice rink chiller.
yes, oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'll give an update for us.
Now that we're all happy, you're.
I'm gonna phrase this in such a way that I'm just gonna give you the information and leave my editorial comment out.
Respectfully optimistic.
Yeah.
Careful, you already grabbed that Tootsie
We
Roll.
we received delivery today of the crankshafts that we've
Shaft
been
has
looking
arrived.
for the last year. So ABM is supposed to show up on site and begin the,
Whoa.
say, installation and
This may be the happiest I've ever been
Fabrication.
when I gave the shaft.
Another dad joke slides right in, baby.
You wanted to know where it was coming from. That was a good
did you
one.
wonder?
Yeah.
Did you know where?
I expected.
Want to wait and see how this project progresses.
Yeah,
But if we move forward, well, if we move forward with the bond issue, we've got some ideas on some other recreation projects that potentially
yeah,
would slot
that sounds
in.
great.
The
Would slide
size
into-
and scale may change.
Yeah.
So just as a,
You're
Blowing up some.
timetable on the bond, just, going to market and such and having a vote and all that, is any kind of
Funds as part of the
timetable?
guy that's gonna be working.
Sorry, I have two people looking at me. Go ahead.
It just not hard to pass dates, just roughly to say, as we talk about the bond timetable for when essentially commission will vote on it. So as you have to go through various steps and such, do you have kind of an idea of when this bond will be voted?
I hope we're in between March and May timeframe.
That's the one.
Yes.
Thank you.
Potential rate reimbursement resolutions coming your way prior to that, depending on the project.
Whenever we get back, something we open bids for the.
We'll have more information on the crankshaft, so on and so forth, so it's the tentative timeframe.
Sorry to be texting and meeting. It's my family picking me up, the one car family, you know.
No. No. Yes,
They're
correct.
approaching Mount Lebanon. But you know, that's done yet.
All right, any other questions for the good of the order? We're done in 3 meetings. The December 4th, commission session for budget session 4 will be canceled. I will send out carryovers to you. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. We can discuss those at the public meeting and the public hearing. I can also present if that's so
Sure.
deemed,
Yeah,
if you'd like
sure.
to, at the public hearing for the commission amendments, so you can, if you need any more information on the carryovers, but those will be sent out to you next week.
Forward a copy.
I will not forward a copy, especially to you, but yes, I will forward to everybody else. No, yes. We'll get this all taken care of and I'll button it up, and we'll get that out to you early next week, with the carryovers as well. And if you have any questions, again, thank you for a great budget session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
for
Thank you.
sending all this to us and being so prepared. We really appreciate it. And you. And thanks to all the commissioners on time.